Hey there and welcome. It's Monday, the 24th of August at 8 p.m. My name is Theo Van Dor. I'm the executive producer of Time of the Six Suns series. In the window below, you have Nikki Luna Williams, who is the writer, creator, director of this amazing project. And our guest tonight is Anna Rodgers. Welcome, Anna.
Hello. Hello. Thank you so much for having me, guys. This is a real honor to be speaking to you tonight.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk. And it's wonderful actually, because I found out about Anna's book about 4 years ago when I moved to Sussex, to Ashdown Forest, where A.A. Milne wrote Winnie the Pooh, and then I discovered that Anna lives really nearby, and so we ended up meeting for a cup of tea and chatting about all of the amazing topics in the book. So we've been friends for about 4 years, and so it's just lovely to have you with us. And thanks so much for being with us tonight. Let's see where people are joining us from this evening. So if you want to just say hello in the chat, then we can see as you come in. So you've got Pascal here. We've got Maddie says hello everyone as you guys are coming in. Bob Eden's watching us. Anne's watching. It's brilliant. I love seeing all these friendly faces come in. So we're going live across our Facebook page, our Facebook group, and on YouTube. So we've got we've opened it right up, and lots of people are coming in, as I can see. We've got somebody from Holland, Papa Hotels in Holland. Ria says love and blessings. Anne says from the United States. Lyra's in London. You guys are watching on YouTube, so thank you so much for joining us. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to bring up right at the beginning, because it's good to have this up. So this is Anna's amazing book, Toxic World, Toxic People: The Essential Guide to Health, Happiness, Parenting, and Conscious Living. The testimonial is my go-to book for living a cleaner life. And it's full of fantastic information. So we're going to talk a lot more about that over the next 90 minutes. And if you are new to this, and because I know this talk's been shared so many times, I've seen on all the different links. Time of the Sixth Sun is a movie. It's a 108-minute movie and an 8-part documentary series that is available to watch. We launch the series every Tuesday. So if you haven't watched it before, you're able to do so. You just need to go to timeofthesixsunlaunch.com, put in your name and email address so that we can send you the links to watch the different episodes each day. And you can sit back and enjoy it. And we've got a Facebook group now of over 28,000 people, a Facebook page. I think it's approaching 45,000 likes. And our YouTube channel's building in subscribers all the time. So if you are watching on YouTube, please do remember to subscribe as well. And we're really excited to move through. So I'm going to pass over to Nikki Luna.
Great. Fab to have you on the show, Anna.
Thank you.
So I was just looking back at my list of all the shows. We've done 32 shows, live broadcasts, and we actually haven't had anyone particularly talking about our health and environmental health. So, I think it's something that is going to put on a light bulb for all of us. I can't wait to hear some of your answers.
Wow.
So how we deal with toxicity, as Theo just introduced your book, Toxic World, Toxic People. Can you give us some backstory as to what led you to writing the book, but as in your early health symptoms?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was a very ill child from as early as I can remember. I suffered with chronic fatigue and quite severe mental issues. And even from the age of 12, I was suicidal and would always get in fits of rage. I didn't get along with my parents. School was a nightmare. I couldn't concentrate. I was just a mess, and I knew that it wasn't normal. But I also found it quite difficult to tell people that, because I thought if I told them how sick I was, they would put me into a mental hospital. So there was a lot of paranoia and a lot of fear that I had. And the older I got, the worse that I got. And it wasn't until, how old was I? About 25 when I had a flu.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me very ill. I actually got the flu. And then I forgot about it for a while because I didn't actually understand that there was a connection between feeling very ill with those things. And I grew up with a doctor as a father. So I was given loads of all the ones on the schedule back then I was given. And certainly whenever I had something wrong with me, I would ask my dad and he'd give me pharmaceutical things. And slowly I got worse and worse. And yes, suicide was something that was always on my mind. And I actually had a few attempts where I did nearly die twice. So after the thing I just showed you before, we actually moved to the UK. And then by the end of the year, we'd been there for 6 months. It was about a year after I'd had what I just showed you before, that things got so bad that my memory was just absolutely terrible. And my depression was the worst it had been. I could barely walk upstairs because I had so much fatigue and body, like a heavy body feeling, that I literally felt like I was dying. But I'd actually seen some doctors and explained to them how I felt. And I'd had some blood tests done. I even had a brain scan in Australia, and everything came back negative. But I knew that there were lots of things wrong with me because it wasn't something I was imagining. So I ended up speaking out on my Facebook about how I was feeling, and I was connecting with people. This was the start of my journey into toxicity. And a friend kept mentioning mercury to me, and she said, "It sounds like you've got mercury poisoning symptoms." And I thought, well, what is that? Where is that from? And then when I looked into that, I knew where the main sources of mercury were. And one of them is fillings, and I don't have any silver fillings, so I knew it wasn't that. And then the friend mentioned these, and that in the flu ones, there's still mercury in them. So this was the catalyst for me to start going down the rabbit hole of toxicity. And it absolutely shocked me how many toxins there are in the environment and where they are. And the main thing that shocked me was that we're never told about them, that our doctors that we go and see never, ever bring up the subject of toxicity. They don't even have an understanding of it as well. So that was how I went down this rabbit hole. And yeah, it's why I wrote a book that's rather large, as you just showed me. But I also combined my book with, I feel like there's two massive problems going on in the world. One is the toxicity from the environment and things that we're eating and drinking and putting on our body and what's in our medications. But the other one is also the toxicity of parenting, when it is done in a way that leaves a child traumatized, which I suffered both. I suffered from sickness, from loads of stress. I was always crying. It was like a combination of the fact that my brain wasn't working right. I behaved in a certain way. I'd get in trouble from my parents. I'd get in trouble at school. It was just a big amalgamation of so many different assaults. And because I was passionate about that, I started doing some research into childhood development and psychology, and just all these light bulbs went off. It's like, this is why the world's in a mess. People are toxic from things that they've got in their bodies. Plus parenting is I know it's difficult to do. I'm a parent myself to 2 girls, but when you have parents that do not validate you, they don't look at you with love, they put you down, it creates so much disease and sickness in society.
Yeah, it seems amazing that our health system is it's always playing catch up on health issues, in as much that, if every year we had an annual metal toxicity or whatever test, so they could catch things way before they form, it would save our health service millions, probably billions, actually.
It really would.
Therein lies the clue maybe of why they don't do it, but it's so outdated, isn't it?
There are big cover-ups going on with toxicity, because there are obviously lots of money to be made with drugs and things to treat the symptoms of the problems that we have. Yeah. And it was interesting, when I wrote my book, the lady that did my PR managed to get a full-page article written in the Sun paper of all newspapers, and it was on a Saturday. I remember being like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And she wrote about it in a positive way. It was a story basically about the 4 main metals that are causing havoc in our bodies, and what they were and what the symptoms were and where they came from. And
what were they, the 4 metals?
Lead, mercury, cadmium, and aluminium. And everything I wrote was factual. I wasn't able to link it in the story because the lady had interviewed me and read my book. But everything I've written in my book is backed up by science. But what was interesting is that article came out on the Saturday, and then on the Tuesday, there was a hit piece that came out from an organization called Sense About Science that basically ridiculed my book, saying it was all rubbish. And they went after me as, just a mother who's a travel writer, because that's what I used to do as well. And they started to defame my character and to make it sound like I didn't know what I was talking about. And I remembered thinking, wow, this book is a threat, because I know how these groups work. Because once you start going down this rabbit hole, you start to realize there are massive cover-ups going on with so many different topics of things to do with health. And there's a load of money being made with these chemicals and metals. Aluminium, for one, is traded on the stock exchange, and it's worth quite a lot of money, even though it's a very cheap, abundantly found metal. It's used in so many things. So if we start and share concerns about that, and there are lots of scientists that are doing studies that are showing very concerning findings about aluminium, and bear in mind this is just one metal that we're all coming into contact with.
Well, just one of the leading causes, they believe, for Alzheimer's.
Yeah, and this, in fact, he's a professor to be very proud of, because he's a British one called Professor Chris Exley, and he's a world-renowned expert on aluminium, and he's done some groundbreaking research about aluminium being connected to Alzheimer's and also autism as well. And when you look at his studies, they're absolutely irrefutable. Yet there is a orchestrated movement to attack his character, to attack his studies, because when you see the use of aluminium and that it's in so much stuff, even in the microphone that I've got in front of me, I'm sure that's in it. It's everywhere. And if that is proven, yes, definitely. In loads and loads of amounts. And I've actually got a chapter in the book about that. It's quite a big section in there about that particular thing. And I spoke about aluminium, and in the infant vaccines, it's just an insane amount of stuff in there. And what I've been learning recently is aluminium is not like the stuff we ingest through food. It's nanoparticles of aluminium. And if that stuff gets in the brain, it's very difficult to get it out. So yeah, it's a huge problem. But
I'll talk about those later.
Yeah, I can see the money behind the cover-ups of these chemicals, because it's a billion-dollar industry. What really disturbed me was when I wrote my book, which I think was about 5 years ago, the statistics were we all come into contact with 80,000 chemicals, which is enough to kind of, make you...
Blows your mind.
But there's recent information now that's come out from the EPA in America that it's now approximately 100,000 chemicals. So in those 5, 6, 7 years since I've written my book, they're now producing more chemicals than ever. And, it's a subject where you need to know what to be aware of. But I also had to come to a realization that we're never going to stop this production of them. We're never going to ban them all. Even if we do ban them, like lead and DDT have been banned. However, they're still in the environment. They're still in our bodies, because they're so pervasive in our bodies that babies get metals and toxins from the mum. So we're literally passing them down through the generations. And this is a huge reason why there are so many learning and behavioral disabilities today.
So this is sort of feigning ignorance. Is this global? I mean, are there any countries that look at, as a first port of call, metal toxicity, like Switzerland or Germany? I don't know.
As far as I know, it's not something that is in any health system in the world where the governments are actively going out of their way to test people for that. And this is where you have to be your own healthcare specialist these days, is what I had to do. If I hadn't have taken the responsibility on my own shoulders, I do not think I would be alive today, because my problems would have gotten worse and I would have ended up probably ending my own life, because it just got too painful. But I'm glad it's happened to me, because I've experienced what it's like to be incredibly toxic and worn down from years of stress. But I also know what it's like to come out of that hole. And it is quite extraordinary what can happen to your brain when you do the right things to get it back to a more healthy function. I mean, I don't think I'll ever have 100% perfect brain function because of the poisoning that I had when I was about 5 or 6. I actually put lead paint on my body, my hands and arms. I was at a hotel and I was playing with house paint, and we didn't know. Like, no one said, stay away from that paint. You shouldn't touch it. We knew we shouldn't touch it, but not because it was poisonous, because it was a naughty thing to do. And so we were pretending to be doing Aboriginal dancing with the white marks on the body, and I put it on my legs, and then it dried. I tried to wash it off, and of course I couldn't. And I thought, oh God, what am I going to do? And then I used some turpentine to get it off, and it wasn't the 100% pure turpentine. It was synthetic, cheaper grade stuff. Washed it off, and then jumped in the pool because it was summer, and then I forgot about it. I never ever looked back at that day.
Think how many people paint their houses and you get paint all over you, and we all do that. We take turpentine to rub it off. I mean, probably not to the extent you did it, but it's so. Out of those 80,000 chemicals, what did you come across? Name a few things maybe that you were really surprised how toxic they were, that we mainstream wouldn't know.
For me personally, it was the lead, because throughout my childhood, I'd actually broken quite a few bones. And by the time I was 26, I'd broken, I think it's 4 bones, and I dislocated an elbow. But that's a lot of breaks, really. And I have very small bones. My hands and arms are quite small compared to the rest of my body, which is interesting, isn't it? Where I put the paint on my body is kind of a bit strange. And it's just not normal to have those many breaks. And then also I had the learning disability, which is connected to lead poisoning as well. And then I've also had difficulty breathing, not to a point where you'll hear me gasp for air, but I don't take a deep breath into my lungs and diaphragm. So that's affected how, everything, because oxygen is so important. But when I started to look into the toxicity of these metals, I read about lead, and that's when the light bulb went off in my head, because it said that an exposure to it is lead paint chippings. A lot of kids, if they live in a house that's been painted with old paint, and we do have a lot of those houses in this country. Yeah. Same with America, lead poisoning is a really big problem. I looked at an article the other day, it said 1 in 3 children have lead poisoning. Wow. And their parents don't even know about it, because it can get in the soil, again, through building homes, and then through renovating old homes as well. And like lead paint tastes quite sweet when it's a paint chipping. And again, I've got memories of, in my bedroom growing up, we had window frames that you could push up and down. So when the paint was getting old, it would flake off. I remember sitting there picking off. I don't think I ate it, but I definitely touched the paint chippings, because I'd sit and stare out my window when I was feeling really depressed. So I'm thinking I had that exposure as well. It's also in some of the water pipes that we drink. I would say quite a lot of old homes still have the water coming through those lead paints. But answering your question, we have a massive problem with plastics, because we're all drinking out of plastic bottles, and also we have plastic over our food as well. I read an article that says we each come into contact with, and when I say in contact, we're ingesting a thin credit card's worth of plastics every week, which is just insane. And these
build lovely organic humus, and you think it's really healthy, but it's really, you have to transfer everything into glass as soon as you get home, and even then, how long has it been sitting in plastic?
I know.
And you think about lead petrol as well. I mean, lead petrol only went out in about 2000, didn't it? So from the 1920s through to 2000, we were still filling our cars with lead petrol, at which point you were inhaling that every time you filled the car up. And then with regards to the aluminium, if you check the majority of off-the-shelf deodorant, it has aluminium in it. And then you're rolling that into your armpit, or you're spraying it onto your armpit. And your skin, I think, is your largest organ, isn't it? Your endocrine system. And I was speaking to a lady that deals with toxicity and cancer and breast tumors. And she was saying that actually anything you put onto your skin is absorbed into your bloodstream in anything between 15 and 30 seconds.
That's
so
right.
you're putting that on every single day. And then, and especially if the mum is putting that on every day and then lactating and then feeding that to the baby, no wonder these babies are also picking up, even if they're not having the VACs, then they're going to be getting it directly from the mum.
Yeah. And
going straight into the brain. I mean, it's frightening.
And we only have to look at the statistics of things that are happening to children and even adults with cancers and Alzheimer's. Everything is increasing every year. And we now have the statistics, like in, was it 1900s, 1 in 20 people develop cancer. And then now it's almost 1 in 2. And when you look at the production of chemicals, because there was a chemical revolution and it was advertised as something that was just so wonderful that people were going to have a better life because of chemistry. And it got people thinking, wow, aren't we amazing human beings? We're developing all these things that are going to make our lives so much better and easier. And for women, we're going to look better because we have all this makeup and all these products. But there was never any regulation for what was safe and what wasn't. So unfortunately, we've been victims of modern technology and obsessions with having the best and the newest, and there's been no repercussions. And even today, there doesn't seem to be any regulation where they say for you to create a new chemical, you have to study it for 5-10 years, because who would do that? You know, if you want to make something and produce it, but then you had to have a study done for that amount of time, that people just wouldn't do it. So it's horrible to look and say, again, it's all about greed and the corporations making loads of money, and it's before people's health. But when we look at childhood cancer, some of them have doubled or tripled. And you think, you know, what are we doing? And what are our doctors doing? They're just not looking in the right areas. They're just blaming that it's genetics, and lots of things get blamed as a genetic condition. And whilst it can look like that, because if a mother has something and then the child develops the same problem, you can say it's genetics. I don't think it is. And lots of scientists now don't think it is either. They think it's an environmental problem that is passed down through the mother to the baby, and it's because of metals and toxins.
Yeah, I had, I really relate, and I'm sure lots of people viewing will, that I had 14 big, large fillings in my teeth. So they took them out. It was a special dentist. He took them out in 4 quarters, but the whole lot were removed within about 2 weeks, and he trapped a nerve. So he then, after putting all the white fillings in, had to go back and try and find which tooth was was bothering me. So that mercury must have been moved around so much, and I've had a test done, and I'm very heavily metal toxic. And I need to start a real chelation process.
Yeah,
or maybe we're going to talk about later, Zeolite,
because it's something.
So I'd just like to caveat this, because we didn't do this at the beginning, and Luna said I should have, and I missed it. But Anna, you're not a health professional, but you're a mum of 2 young girls. You're a victim of metal toxicity, and this has basically been your own personal journey of recovery. And you've looked into and researched all these topic of death, but at depth. Sorry, wrong word. But I must say that nothing we are talking about here is medical advice. You always need to talk to your GP. You know, the usual caveats, but this is an interesting conversation based on Anna's huge amounts of research in this book, Toxic World, Toxic People.
Yeah, that's important to say. And in a way, it's sad that we have to say that. And again, the system has created these strict rules with what we can say and what we can't say. And I find it very interesting that the medical industry can make claims and they can get away with saying whatever they want. But if you question what they're doing, it can get you in trouble.
Yeah.
So true. And they're really not educating our kids either, are they?
No.
But you write a lot. I mean, some things we'll have to leave for people to check out in the book, but you talk about depression, mental health, and you talk about education and the children in your book.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. People that have had a troubled childhood, it either makes you or it breaks you. And if it hasn't broken you, you feel very strongly about helping other children or other people to not have the same mistakes done to them that was done to me, for example. So I read a lot. That's basically what I did when I was pregnant. I just wanted to get as much information as I could, because I thought, if my children turn out like me because of me, it would be something I would not be able to live with myself, because, you know, it's hard enough bringing up children in this world today, but they need to feel safe and loved by their parents. It's the most important thing, because if they don't, it causes so many problems. And for me, I had no respect towards my health or my body. I ended up doing a lot of drugs as well, and I drank a lot, because I used to think, well, my parents don't care, so why should I care about myself? And we can see that that's happening today with so many teenagers. Depression has never been this bad in young children. It's happening younger and younger. The statistics for mental health treatment for children that should be happily playing and having no cares in the world, it's heartbreaking. I find it really, really upsetting with what's going on.
You said something about genetics, and I know that when I had the test done, they found, apart from those four main, and I had all of those: cadmium, aluminium, mercury, and barium, was it?
Aluminium?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they also found things like wolframium. I don't know if anyone out there has heard of
that. Wow.
It's like a very hard gold. So I don't think I've ever been around anything where I would have got wolframium, which leads me to believe that must have been something that came inherently through my mother.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, from what I've read, this is reading medical mediums books, and obviously, you know, he says some amazing things, but a lot of it, I guess, is from his connection with spirit. So the mainstream system, they laugh at him, but what he says to me makes sense, and that is, we are definitely passing down mercury and DDT and lead in the body. And also with doctors, they say that, well, you have a liver, that's what its job is, to detox you and to keep you healthy. But that's true. How can the body detox 100,000 chemicals, you know, and that we're breathing them in every second? And, you know, some people find this topic really uncomfortable, because the truth is, it's pretty terrible. It's like you can't really take a sip of water without, you know, drinking something and putting something on your skin. And even organic food has traces of pretty nasty things on it, because the air is not pure. But as much as this topic did scare me when I first looked into it, as they say, knowledge is power. And if you know what things do work to help the cells function and your organs to work better, then that's what you need to focus your attention on, is the solutions, and not to be so scared of the reality of what we're facing.
Yeah. Have you had your kids tested, Taya? With
toxicity?
Toxicity, yeah.
Well, that's a completely different subject. I think we might touch on later. In that Anna actually introduced me to mitochondrial therapy, and where they link you up to an heart rate variability machine to check basically how well the system is coping in good health and also in stress. And my son and I have been taking those supplements for 3 years, and the difference in behavior and in slowing down my ADD and things has been phenomenal. But to answer your question, have I actually had them tested for heavy metals? No, I haven't.
Because I do remember Stu, who we've had on the show, he and his partner at the time took in a boy who was very highly autistic. He was about to be put in institutionalized. And the first thing they did was send away tests of everything, swabs, hair, and he was highly, highly toxic on top of the level, every single level. And it took about, well, I can't remember, but yeah, it took months and radical stuff to totally detox him. But they did manage it. But how does a 10-year-old boy come in so heavily toxic when both his parents were therapists, I believe? So it's like, yeah.
I mean, Deborah, you've just talked about it, Anna, but Deborah here says you all need to know about medical medium Anthony William. He has a healing protocol for ridding body of toxic heavy metals. His work comes from a spiritual place of compassion for humanity. I've read that book. Actually, again, Anna told me to read that book.
It's brilliant.
Because I had a friend that was suffering from now the word's gone. What's the thing that Anthony thinks lots of people have?
Epstein-Barr virus.
Epstein-Barr, yeah. And that was fascinating. And my beloved Olivia, she's just finished Anthony Williams' new book where she's just done this 11-day liver cleanse, and she came out of that feeling absolutely. Pardon?
She has a glow. When I saw her before, I was like, whoa, you look, something's good.
Oh, that's right. She came around just after she'd finished it, I think. Yeah.
I think
juice celery and all these different things. And it's amazing, just to give your body a chance to stop and reset.
Yeah, I've just been doing the celery thing. So, let's continue talking about mitochondria. Most people have maybe never heard of that. So do you want to just explain to us, Anna, what mitochondria are?
Simple way, the mitochondria is what's in our cells, and it's responsible for giving the cells energy. And it's very, very important because it has a massive job of helping the body heal itself. So I'm so glad that you brought this topic up, because it was something that I came across through my journey. And I feel so blessed that I found it, because I literally don't think I would have survived. Because when I found out about this mitochondrial therapy, I think I was close to 30, and I was at my worst, very depressed. And I actually recently had spent about £4,000 on a doctor in Harley Street on testing and supplements, and everything that she tested me for, I knew what was wrong with me because I'd done so much research, and I finally had the proof, but the solutions that she offered me didn't work. And I was one of those people that used to take a lot of supplements because I'd read something and go, I need to take that. And then I'd buy something else and take that. And I never felt any better. And I didn't understand. And I always used to think, there's something broken in my body and there's something broken in my brain. And I don't know what it is, but I know there must be something out there that can be the answer to why I can't seem to improve. Because my friends would take a supplement and they'd go, wow, I feel amazing from it. Or they'd do a diet and they'd feel great. Whereas when I did the raw food diet, I'd make myself these huge green smoothies and then I'd have to go and lie down for hours because I didn't realize that my digestion was so bad that drinking a huge raw drink had stressed my body out because it couldn't process the information of what was in the drink. So it was really bad. And I was so frustrated because, again, I didn't have any answers from anyone. And then I met a lady in London who she was in her 60s and had chronic fatigue as well. So we bonded over that and we started sharing information about things we'd tried. And she was the same as me. She tried so many things. She'd even gone to John of God in Brazil and spent time with him and get any better. And she'd done all these diets, spent a lot of money. And then one day she came in and she said, oh, Anna, I have to tell you about something. I've met this amazing doctor who does space medicine. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Space medicine? You sound like a Fruit Loop. And she said, no, he works with the astronauts and he does mitochondrial stuff. And I didn't know what mitochondria meant. But because I was so desperate, I thought, I'll go and meet him. You know, what can I lose? It wasn't going to cost me too much money. So I went to the clinic and had something done called the heart rate variability test. And it was painless, didn't hurt at all. I just sat there and had my wrists clipped up to a machine that read the heartbeat, but not like a normal test for the heart is done. It was reading the space between the beats. And this, it's really interesting because it's basically a stress test. So it was a 5-minute test. I just had to sit there and relax, but without meditating. You just needed to be still. And I remembered the doctor, when he was running the test, he just sat there and he looked at the screen and just kept shaking his head. And he said at the end of it, he goes, "You are too young to be this sick." And I know this sounds weird, but I was glad to hear that, because it was the first time someone had gone, "You are really not well." And then there was the first person that could explain why I wasn't well. And then he started to go through the test, and he basically said, the hypothalamus in your brain, the job it has is to tell the body how to heal. And the receptor sites in your body are not listening to those messages. And it all just made sense, because I remember I said before, I felt like something was broken and it wasn't connecting, because I was trying all these things and nothing worked. So then he started to explain with the testing, and that it was used for the astronauts, because when they go into space, it is, humans probably aren't really meant to be in space when you think about it. It's very different, isn't it? It's a very different environment. It's very, very stressful. And from the other space visits astronauts have done, their bodies would deteriorate very quickly. It would age internally inside. And when he did my test, he explained to me that what my body was in age was not how it was on the test, and that internally my body was acting as if it was 80. And I felt like it, because when you have chronic fatigue, you feel tired all the time. Simple things I couldn't do. I couldn't put the duvet cover on the duvet. I couldn't lift shopping. I had to ask my husband to do loads for me, and then I would do something that was a little bit of housework, then I'd have to go and lie down. So I did not feel my age, and every year that went by, it got worse and worse. Same with my mental health, it was worse. So when you're in that, it's terrifying, particularly when you are so young. So he explained to me that basically my organs had aged far too quickly, and this is why I had loads of toxicity, because my cells weren't functioning. They weren't able to do its job, which is to get rid of things that don't belong in there. And it wasn't able to communicate to the body. So then he explained that was why I would take all these supplements, because he asked me how much I spent on those tests and the supplements. And when I said £4,000, he just gasped. And he said that, it's just terrible what's happening, that, people are spending so much money. And for some, it does work. But for some people like me, who had such an extreme case of stress induced illness, that things don't work until you get this quite simplistic connection.
Well, core root, isn't it? You have to go and deal with the core issue. And
it just made sense. And then he explained what was in the supplements, and the main ingredient is something called carnosine, which is a dipeptide joined together. And it's actually found in all of us, but in high levels if you are healthy. And it's found in high levels in the brain and in the heart and in the muscles. However, if you aren't healthy and you aren't well, it's deficient in the body. So again, I found that so fascinating, because I'd never heard of carnosine at all. And then when I started looking into it, I knew that there were studies to show that it was effective, but it's a real missing link in the health space today. Even in the alternative field, not enough people know what carnosine does. But the difference with this particular supplement that I took is that they had done something to the formula to make it stay in the body for 8 to 12 hours. Because if you go and buy carnosine just from a health food shop and take it, it only lasts in the body for about half an hour. So when you think about a body that needs to be repaired, you need to have certain things stay in the cells for a long time so that it's still working when you're resting. Because if it uses it up too quickly, it's not going to be able to go in there and repair everything. So this stuff was amazing, and they've actually used it in a multiple sclerosis study, because that's a terrible condition that's affecting so many people today. The rates of that is just skyrocketing, and it's a horrible, horrible disease. But this particular supplement has been used with great success with people that were...
Mitochondrial supplement. It's
It's a particular recipe that a couple of companies in the world make that have the same formula, and they won't tell people how they've made it so highly bioavailable, but they've got the studies to prove that it does stay in the cells. But it's been very good for kids with autism as well.
And so, Taya, how did you experience it?
Well, when we went, we first went 3 years ago, I think, to meet the doctor, and it's the same thing as Anna's saying. Sat down with this HRV monitor, and it basically gives you a score of 1 to 9. 1 being you're in optimum health, 9 being you're all over the place. And my eldest son was 9, and I was 8. And and I generally feel I'm fit and healthy, and
Yeah,
I do. Luna, you struggle with my ADD, but it was quite. I was quite shocked, and it also, the same machine with the printout, it produces a scattergram, and if you don't know what a scattergram is, it basically looks like a graph, but it's got dots all over the place, and what you really need is all the dots centered in the middle. And both Teo and my eldest son is called Teo. They were both all over the place. And I remember saying to Anna, I said, "Wow, this is fantastic. So you wait till you see where you take the supplements." So we took the supplements, and it was one. And it's funny you said that, Anna, because I've tried so many different things over the years, and it's one of those things I have religiously taken because I could see the results. And what was interesting was we went back every 3 months, and every 3 months I would see that scattergram get a little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer. And now, after 3 years of being on the supplements, the last time we went there, we were both number 1.
Wow.
He said I had the physiological age of somebody in their mid-30s, and I'm 45.
Awesome.
He said my son, gives you like a power ratio. He said my son and I, he said our power ratios are huge. And he said, and that just shows what happens if you consistently take it, give your body the support. And actually now we need to only take a lot less because we've naturally increased the numbers on there. I didn't know we were going to go down the mitochondrial route tonight.
I'm fascinating. It's so important.
We were going to go on to Zeolite, basically, which is what we wanted to talk about today, but it's a lovely lead-in to that. Do you want to talk about the Zeolite and how?
The mitochondrial supplements, before we go on to the Zeolite, for me, it wasn't an overnight fix. And it's like that for a lot of people, because if you've been very stressed and unwell for so long, there's no magic bullet that can fix you overnight. So for me, I actually had quite a tough time on it, because when you start taking something that kickstarts the brain and kickstarts the receptor sites, it doesn't necessarily mean they automatically do that. So mine was still quite chaotic, and it was quite difficult for me because I actually felt a bit worse for a while. And it was frustrating because I wanted to feel better so soon. But my journey with getting to a point where I actually knew I was better was 1.5 years. That's how sick I'd been to begin with. And when I used to see Dr. Kachira, he was just stunned by my tests because he expected me to move faster. And when they say move, it means move up that chart so that you're into the green zone, where your body is basically adapting to stress. Because for us to all survive this world, we need our bodies to adapt to stress, because if it's too stressed, then disease happens. So it took a long time for me.
I totally relate to you, and I'm sure so many people watching are going to as well. And I had an amazing doctor in London, a naturopath, who literally, when I had an autoimmune, stepped in and said, "I want to bring you back to full strength and health." And he's been my guardian angel and given me a lot of very powerful supplements, really, to deal with the inflammation. But I also am very slow. I'm toxic from heavy metals and have been very poorly.
Yeah, it's very sinister what they do. And I can so relate to how you feel. It's awful to be trapped, basically, where you just feel so sick. But as I said, there's things that we can do, and hopefully Teo and I can help you with that. I know I wouldn't be here without the zeolite or the mitochondrial stuff. But I remember being in Morocco I think we went for 3 days, and I had not been, like, when I used to go out in London, it was very rare because my anxiety was so bad and my energy was so poor. if my husband took me to a museum, I only ever liked going because it meant I could sit down whilst he went and looked at things. So whenever we went away, it wasn't fun for him because he was basically with someone who was an elderly person with the way that I used to feel. And yeah, we went to Morocco for a long weekend, and we went on a private sort of road tour, and the guy took us to the mountains. And I remember climbing up. It wasn't a huge mountain. I won't say that I climbed Mount Everest, but it was something that was a real achievement for me. And I felt like I had more freedom of movement and energy in my body. And I remembered thinking, wow, this stuff is really working. And it was extraordinary because it was the first time ever in my life that I'd actually felt better. So that stuff is amazing. I've sent many friends along, and it's not something that I make money from. So I'm not talking about it to make money. It's just something that I'm really passionate about. All the good science is heading in the direction of mitochondrial research, although they're trying to find drugs, of course, that they'll prescribe to people. But yeah, at least 200 diseases are linked to mitochondrial dysfunction. And this is a huge problem for children today. So I'm very, very passionate about this subject. But yeah, the zeolite was something that was also extraordinary, and that actually worked quite quickly for me with the mercury that caused the brain fog and the sort of the heavy feeling in my body. So a friend of mine on Facebook, who was the one that used to talk about mercury from the flu, she said that she'd been taking this stuff, zeolite, for years. And because I'd had so many people tell me things to take over the years, it took me a while to actually buy some. And when I took it, I thought, geez, why didn't I listen to her all these years ago?
So can we explain to the audience watching what zeolite is?
I'm sure there's probably a lot of people out there that have heard of zeolite, because it is quite popular in the alternative space. And it's basically what they call a miracle mineral, because the way it works is it comes from volcanic ash. So it's very, very old. And the structure of it under a microscope is that of a cage. And it actually has a negative charge. And when I learned this, it just blew my mind that toxins have positive charges. And so metals and plastics, and I think even radiation has a positive charge. So when the zeolite comes into your body and into contact with the toxin, it acts like a magnet. And so it traps it inside, and then it gets excreted. It doesn't stay in the body. It pulls it out through your urine and sweat. So I took it for 2 weeks, and yeah, that's all it took for me to have a really dramatic response with improving my brain so much. And even my body odor, which I get, it's embarrassing to admit, but it also makes sense that because I was so toxic, I didn't smell nice. My BO was just gross, and I could always smell it, and I'd just put on the deodorants and try and cover it up. But that went away. And my husband said to a friend that he knew the zeolite worked because I no longer smelled like off milk. So embarrassed when he said that, but it was quite a powerful thing to say, because someone else noticing something in you and improvement, that's quite a big thing, because as humans, we notice little things within ourselves, but when someone else notices it too, you think, oh, yeah, that's quite big then.
So when you talk about it being volcanic ash, which is highly magnetic, I've been looking and I've been sleeping for many, many years with an ionizer. So again, for people watching, positive ions are the unhealthy, toxic things in life, and negative ions are the healthy ions. And I was watching a virologist lately in regard to the current virus, and he's been testing since last November, and he took a meter square cube with the virus inside it and then started working with different ionizers. And what they witnessed over and over again was that the ions together would clump around the virus, and then the negative ions would literally disintegrate these spikes, which are the proteins rendering the virus unusable. Well, not unusable, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, breaks it apart so that it doesn't have its sort of
So
power
it sounds
anymore.
like Zeolite is working in a very similar way.
And there was even a study done as well that showed that when you use Zeolite, it has like antiviral properties. So it's been a very popular thing that people have been taking because of the recent pandemic. So, but yeah, I you know, when you suffer so much for so long, when something works, you want to tell everyone about it. And it's been quite an amazing journey to see how it helps people. And I love that it's a safe thing to take, and it's natural as well. But you also have,
is it liquid?
It can come in a powder. But what I've learned about the powders, and if anyone out there does take a Zeolite product already, what I would advise you to do is to look on the website of the company, of the product that you bought, and see if they've actually got any testing to show that their Zeolite is safe. Because in nature, because it is so magnetic, it actually attracts the stuff around it. And as we know, there's things in the soil and the ground that aren't good for us. That's where mercury comes from. It's in the ground, and aluminium is in the ground as well. So unless you have your Zeolite cleaned, if you take it, one, the powders need to be micronized as well, because if the particles are too big, you won't be absorbing it. And I have heard some pretty dreadful stories of people taking a powdered Zeolite that can come from China and it hasn't been cleaned. So it's not working for them. And it's actually retoxing them and giving them more toxins. So I feel very strongly about telling people that whatever you take, you have to have the independent safety testing that shows you it is low in contaminants. Otherwise, it's something that is actually not good for you. It comes in
something that's ethically sourced. So, Taya, do you want to just tell everyone?
Yeah, so this is actually, again, we're jumping all over the place, but it's beautiful. I love it when that happens. So Anna has actually been introduced to a company that does fantastic Zeolite, and we've checked that it's ethically sourced. We've done a load of research on it, and we're in the process. We're trying actually to get the I think his name is Eddie, to actually go live with us next Tuesday evening to talk about this and to talk about detoxification, talk about all the safety studies they've done, talk about how it's ethically sourced. And so we're going to do our regular Facebook Live next Monday, but then we're going to do an extra one next Tuesday night. And they've got this, they're doing this incredible offer, aren't they, for us, Anna? I think it's like...
Yeah, it is. I mean, I just love Eddie. He's like, when you speak to him, he's just such a lovely guy. And his own story of why he started his company is interesting. I won't mention it now, but it's fascinating. And it just shows like the love that he had for this person to try and help them with their own health challenges. It's just wonderful.
And he's been working with it over 30 years, I believe.
I think it's that long. Yeah. And he, I think he was one of the first people to bring it to the market with a global reach. And he invented a liquid zeolite. This was the one that I took. It was a different company back then. And then he left and started Touchstone Essentials, which is basically an organic whole food supplement company. And they're sticklers for testing all of their products that they develop. And they want to show that they're low in contaminants because, as I mentioned earlier in the chat, organic food can have traces of nasty things on it. And he does not want to be selling things to people that actually have toxins on them. But the zeolite, he's got two types. He's got a liquid zeolite that you add to water, which has been micronized and cleaned. And this one, the liquid zeolite, which you put the drops in water and drink it, that's excellent for cleaning the gut. That was the type that I actually used all those years ago. And then they've got a new one now, which is a nanoparticle zeolite. And it's got, I think it's 0.8 nanometers, I think it's called, nanomoles or something super tiny. And basically it can go wherever there's water in the body, that zeolite can go into. So it's very good for cleaning the brain. And people that try it after a couple of weeks or even sometimes a few days, they notice that they're sleeping better, that their brain function is better. So Eddie has got an amazing offer that he's been giving to certain people, where instead of you paying $79.95, you get the bottle for $5, including shipping, and that's for UK and
That's
US
amazing.
people. Yeah,
So
so
they must be really sure that their product is an amazing product.
exactly. And I've never seen a company do that. And, you know, as he says, he knows a lot of people will just get it for that deal. And he goes, it's okay. I don't mind. You know, if you just want to try it and you don't want to get any more, that's completely fine. We're happy for you to have it.
I love it because it's the same model we use with the movie and the docuseries. So we get everything away for free. And we know that a few lovely people will actually then go, I appreciate all the work, all the effort you've done. You know, I've got a bit of spare cash, and I'll buy the, you know, the digital package or the physical package. It's just about giving huge amounts of value first, which is why when you talk to me about it, and we were talking about Zeolite about a month ago, and I was like, Anna, this is amazing how this is all tying up. I'm following the breadcrumbs of the universe here.
Yeah.
Shall we step in? It's we've been in nearly an hour. Have we got some questions, Teo? And then we'll go back and talk some more.
Yeah, we have. Let me just jump back.
Something that's going to bring up lots of.
There's more comments on this one than we've had on most, because there's so many people interested in everything we're talking about here. But I just got to go back and find the questions. I have to scroll through. Reet asks, why is there aluminium in the VACs? I don't understand. It's an adjuvant, but do you want to explain what that is without?
I mean, I'm not.
The reason we keep spelling these words, by the way, and showing placards is everything that we talk about is automatically transcribed by the platforms we're on, and we don't want this flashing up to get taken down, because it's got a lot of useful information in there.
So mind your words, Mrs.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, as far as I know, the adjuvant is something that gives the an immune response in the body, because when people do testing on those, they basically just want the human to have proof of an immune response. So yeah, it's crazy when you don't have to be a rocket scientist to look into toxins and metals and things, but when you look at them individually, and these things are never good for anyone, even in a tiny amount. There's no beneficial thing. It always causes harm. And the fact that they're putting this stuff in multiple of those things that are given to children, you know, I've had friends that I've connected to on Facebook say that their child was given 11 of those.
Oh God!
One day, 11. And when I added this up in my book in the section on that topic, and when you add up the micrograms of aluminium that they can get from a 6-in-1 shot, it's just extraordinary. And where this topic, and I know it's very controversial and some people feel really strongly that they're actually good for people, what I say is this: the FDA state that there is a limit of aluminium exposure for children in a day, and that is about 63 micrograms for a child. And they're not talking about that in regards to these. They're just saying in regards to ingesting it or some other way of getting it. When you add up what's in some of these 6-in-1, you said, what again? It's like over 1,000 micrograms. I'm pretty sure there's one of those things that's like 1,600 micrograms. So there's all these things that just don't make sense in regards to that topic. And, you know, doesn't take a rocket scientist as well to know that we're not allowed to talk about it anymore. And why is that? And is that because we're threatening profits and they don't want us to have power over what we're putting into ourselves?
And there's no liability for any of those companies. No. And they have to, if you want to take them on, you have to go through the court, and they pay out billions of dollars a year through that court. But how many people don't get to go through that court process?
Exactly. And in America, it's easier to get compensation. But when I say the word easier, it doesn't mean it's easy, because it is still, people don't realize this, that they have their own court system, and it's not like a normal court. They have their own people that are the lawyers. They're all basically the people that are involved in that court system all work for the government. There's nothing independent about these cases.
And isn't there something to say they can't be sued?
Well, you can't sue the manufacturer in the US. So this is where they have their own court system. And this is where all the people involved in the court system, and yes, you can have your own lawyer, but you better be rich. If you want your own lawyer that's a good one, you better have access to a lot of money, because it will take you years and years and years to get the payouts. And you can't even think for a minute that you'll try and get compensation for autism, because they've actually outlawed that. You can't even say that. You can't even say it. So they have in their legal system with that subject, you cannot try and get any money for autism. You have to go in through another way. And unless you're really educated on this subject, and unless you have loads of money, how are you going to fight these people? Because they will have the best of the best fighting against you. But in America, they've paid out $4.5 billion US since 1986. But in the UK, there's hardly any money that's being paid out. And people think that there must be a whole building full of people here that work on these cases. But when I looked into this subject, I was horrified. So first of all, in the UK, you cannot try and get any compensation for any of those that were given to a child under the age of 2. So if something happens, if your child is 18 months, 19 months, 20 months, you can't get anything done, even if your child dies from them. And I do know parents that have lost their children very close to them having the MMR. So that alone should give people red flags about that. You know, if you can't sue when your child is given the most of them in that time frame, and you can't sue for that, I mean, it's awful. And as I said, hardly any money has been paid out. Quite often, a whole year will go by and there'll be no money paid out in this country. And we have a lot of injuries occurring because of the people that I'm connected to. But one lady I know who did successfully win her case because her son was permanently damaged from the MMR. And I'm pretty sure she got the money because he had autism. It took her 18 years to win. And she spent £30,000 of her own money. And she only won a little bit of money. You know, it wasn't millions and millions. In America it is, because they're very money orientated. You know, you can win hundreds of millions of dollars over there for certain things, but over here it's not like that. So yeah, basically people don't know what they're up against when something goes wrong. And with this subject at the moment,
trying to get us into trouble here.
Trying not to. I can't help it. I just can't help but talk about certain things. There's going to be no liability for that one as well.
Yeah.
So we're having a rushed one that won't have any liability, and you just think, what is going on? This is not okay.
One of the main things is that it's totally transparent, both issues you're talking about. It's so transparent because of that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Any more questions, Tara?
Yeah, somebody, it was a great question, but it's actually, there's so many comments coming in that it's disappeared. I can't actually get to it anymore. But it was asking about...
Did I even answer the question? I don't even know if I did. I was going off on a tangent.
You did.
Sorry.
You did. It was hand sanitizers.
Yep.
Now, we talked about this with Hans Gunther Kern a few weeks ago about, you know, obviously everybody, you walk into any shop, hand sanitizers. Mm-hmm. What's your view on those?
I think it's very concerning that people are using them like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day. It really concerns me. Children having to wash their hands so much. Also, what I saw, I'm signed up to a website called, I think it's drugalerts.com, because I want to see what the FDA are releasing in terms of, what drug has been recalled, why, what was the problem with it. And recently, there's been some recalls on the hand sanitizers. And one of them was recalled because it had I think it was a type of wood ethanol, so a wood alcohol in it. And when I read why it was recalled, it was because it was causing awful reactions in people, including death.
Oh my God.
Like, oh my God, from a hand sanitizer.
A lot of things that are natural, like hyaluronic acid, which you can get machines to make it, as the lady in our village who makes it, which is natural and far more powerful than hand sanitizer anyway. Hyaluronic acid, I think.
Like I was saying when we had Hans on, I heard a virologist on that was talking on the radio and said, actually, what we need to do is just put your hands under running water with a little bit of normal soap. Yes. And it has exactly the same effect. And the problem with these antibacterial hand sanitizers is it actually takes all the good microbiome off your skin for up to 8 hours afterwards. So you're opening yourself up to even more stuff.
I've seen friends who've been working frontline, so they've got had to wear gloves a lot, and they've got cracks in between their fingers, and their hands are in a real state. It's dreadful.
And again, the system doesn't think about these kinds of things. They just tell us what people being told what to do to boost their immune system. And if they are obsessed with these cleaners, and even without using the hand sanitizers, just cleaning your home with the normal cleaning products, or, is someone using air fresheners in the house a lot? Those things are so toxic and they're terrible for your lungs. And if we're worried about, a virus that affects the lungs, then what are we doing spraying all this stuff around us? But I do worry about what's going to happen this winter. And I think the sanitizers could play a big role in this, because who's going to get the good bacteria in their bodies if they're always clean all the time?
We grew up as kids knowing that we had to go out and get dirty, and we know that now anyway, that that's what gives our immune systems protection and makes them strong. Clean. So what helps boost our immune systems?
Well, eating a good diet, of course. There's loads of things that people can take, really simple things that garlic, ginger, onions, turmeric, so many different herbs. Like, Mother Nature's amazing. We literally have everything we need to be healthy, and it's common sense stuff. But if you don't know about it, then you just do what everyone else does. And what's blown my mind about this whole thing with the pandemic is, you go to the supermarkets, and I don't mean to sound like I'm judging people, because I know that they're genuinely scared, and I do feel really sorry for people that have these fears, but they're wearing the gloves, they've got the masks on, they're still spraying stuff in front of them. But then when you look in their trolleys, it's like pizzas and so much dairy and so much sugar and so much alcohol. And I just feel like saying, you should be scared more about what's in your shopping trolley than what is around you, because the healthier your cells are, the more you can cope with virus and pathogens and bacteria. It's just common sense. But
I wonder if, Anna, you would, we've been asking all speakers that we've interviewed to maybe give a little something that we can put into our digital streamed package, or share some of it on our Facebook group. But I wonder if maybe you'd give us a little page or 2 pages of things that people can do to help themselves and things to look out for. Maybe a couple of...
Well, I mean, I'm quite happy to give my book away for free. So as soon as I can arrange that, because I can do promotions through Amazon. I did one at the beginning of the month, but I'm sure it could tie in with next week or the week after, where it's free for like a week or something. So I'd love to do that.
Maybe alongside when we do the Zeolite or something.
Yeah, I hope
that might be nice to do.
Wait for it to hit September for the system to accept for me to give it away for free, but I'll certainly have a look on the 1st and see if we can.
And that's on the 1st is when we're having our talk with Eddie.
Oh, awesome. And if it's not in that time, then you can maybe
just hold the book up again, Terry, because that is an incredible offer, Anna. You just surprised me to.
Well, I never wrote that book to make money. It was something I just wanted people to have. Yeah, and it's funny because if you look at the reviews, they're all pretty good, except for a couple. And when you read them, it's quite hilarious because you can just tell that they are pro pharma people that have possibly heard about my book through the articles that it's been in. And yeah, but then when you read the mums that have come across it, that's what makes me happy, knowing that it has had an impact on people and how their families live their lives. Because I do have a lot of information that, yes, it is concerning and it can be quite daunting, but there's also a lot of solutions in there as well, which is the most important part.
Yeah.
What can people do? What can empower people with how they eat and what they drink and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay. Samantha Murray has asked, Luna, I have a mouthful of mercury. Did you feel different getting the mercury fillings removed? In all honesty, Samantha, I don't think I did. I mean, it's 20 odd years ago now. I don't think I did feel very different. And I had a lot of stuff coming up afterwards, and I think that's still sitting with me. So hence this conversation is very timely for me as well.
Yeah, I think if people do that, they have to do it very slowly.
It was done fast, and my dentist was actually, I found out that he was struck off. So you really want to pick and choose carefully who does the work on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much little by little with that, isn't it?
Yeah. Any more, Tay? I've got a couple more questions for Anna, but have you got anything more?
You know what? I'm so sorry, but people ask loads of questions at the beginning, but because there's so many things coming in, they disappear and I can't see them anymore.
Well, you could scroll back while I ask Anna this question, and that's about you're also a writer for Conscious Evolution, amazing group, and you've written about breast implants, the ticking time bomb.
Yes.
Because there's so many other sorts of toxicity. So let's talk about that for a moment.
So I had them put in when I think it was for my 30th birthday. And it's a crazy thing because I'd already started my journey of looking into toxins, but I didn't connect back then that they were so bad for you. And I remembered a friend of mine through Instagram was saying how sick she was and she didn't know why. And then she messaged me one day saying, oh my God, I found out what it is. What's wrong with me? And she sent a copy of a book through. I think it was called The Naked Truth about breast implants. And she goes, you have to read it. So I did. And yeah, completely horrified about that. It's another medical subject that has had a load of cover-ups. There's no transparency there. Women have been told that their implants are made with just saline and a little bit of silicone. It's not true. The stuff that is in the shell is not just one ingredient. In fact, when you try to find out exactly what's in breast implants, no one will tell you the exact ingredients. Years ago, there was a massive class action lawsuit against a company called, what was it? Can't remember. I don't think it was DuPont, but no, Dow Corning. That's it. Dow Corning had made these silicone implants and thousands of women had terrible, terrible reactions. Some women have actually died from these implants because the way they were made was just so toxic. And during the court cases, the judge ordered them to disclose what was actually in their implants. I read it and it was just insane. It was things that kind of made sense. So there's aluminium in there. There are traces of lead. They had even fluoride in them. They had printer ink in them. That was in their list of ingredients. Like, I don't even understand what sort of chemist would think, yep, that's what they need. Women need like printer ink in their implants. That's a really great idea. So it's absolutely horrific. And so I ended up doing some research, and I wrote an article called Breast Implants Ticking Time Bomb. And it went very viral. It's had over 1 million views today. But what was very interesting was when we first published it, we had a lot of comments on there from women that had suffered a lot from their implants, because it can trigger autoimmune conditions that are quite serious, and it can happen very quickly for some women. Again, it's all about how healthy you were to begin with. Sometimes it can take years to show up, but what we're seeing now, and I'm sure a lot of the people watching have also seen, there's a huge movement going on with articles coming out now about breast implant illness. Loads of celebrities have had theirs out. Even Hugh Hefner's wife had hers taken out. And I remembered seeing that. I also wrote about her experience, and I just thought, wow, isn't that amazing?
The tragic, so many young girls are having them done. That's the sad.
Yeah, and their parents are allowing them to have it as well. And they're getting it for their 18th birthday or their sort of graduation present. And you just think, oh my God. And yeah, so I wrote that article. I ended up starting a Facebook group with the same name. We've got over 11,000 women in there, but I find it very difficult to go into my own group because I still have mine in, and it's something that I have been pushing under the carpet. And it's not because I like them. I actually don't. They're too big, and it's not, women, it's funny. They think they want bigger breasts, but when you get them, it's not that fun. It really isn't. And yeah, it's something I regret, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure I was meant to have them in, because if I hadn't have had them in, I wouldn't have done the research. I wouldn't have written this article. The Facebook group wouldn't have started. I wouldn't have been, one of the people that's helped to create this issue go massively viral around the world. And what I love the most when I do go in my group is women come in who are wanting to be informed about breast implants. So they're thinking, I'm going to go have them. I want them, let's go do some research. I love it when women say, oh, I'm so glad I found your group. After reading all of the women's stories in here, I've decided I'm not getting them put in. And it's like, that is the best thing ever. But for me personally, and this is what women don't realize, it's expensive to have them done. It's more expensive to have them out. And if you have a problem because they've ruptured, and they can leak, and that's happened to so many women I know, and it causes a whole problem list that's just insane. And a lot of it is toxicity and mold problems as well. And the after effects that these women suffer from is just insane. And the plastic surgeons make so much money from implants. It's like their main operation they do.
Bread and butter money.
Yeah. Some of them are starting to accept that women are having health issues, but a lot of them say it's all in their head. And I've seen women go from surgeon to surgeon, which costs a lot of money in America to do that, where the doctors are just denying what's wrong with them. And yeah, the ones that are suffering from, so with the saline, because it has liquid inside it, if they puncture and it starts to go into your body, bacteria gets into the implant. And what I've seen in some of the implants that come out, now, most people who know what implants look like in their natural state, they're clear and they've got like a jelly, like you can basically see through them, or you can just see that they're very sort of transparent. I have seen implants come out of women that are black because the mold has gotten in there and the bacteria has completely changed the color of the implant. And some of the doctors that I personally know who are famous now for doing what is called an explant, they share pictures of what comes out of the women's bodies, and it's just horrific. But also for me, when I had them put in under the muscle, because the surgeon said, if we do it this way, you'll never have to have them replaced. They can stay there forever. So it's the best, best operation to do. So I thought, yep, that makes sense. I'll do that. Oh my God, it was the most painful thing I've ever gone through. I went to Belgium to get them done because they're cheaper. And I was in a hotel room for 3 days, unable to move. And they'd given me some kind of like pain relief that was just rubbish and didn't do anything. But it was absolutely excruciating. And I remembered thinking, what have I done to myself? Why do we do this? I had nothing wrong with my breasts anyway. They're just, I thought, were just too small, but there's absolutely nothing wrong. And it was just pure vanity on a whim. That's why I did it. And now I have to work on my phobia of going to have them out, not because I don't want to have big boobs anymore. I'm literally now paranoid of dying under the anesthetic, or some of the operations I've heard that the women have had to get them out is really horrific, because if you have them underneath the muscle, if the implant has ruptured, the surgeon sometimes has to scrape off the implant off your ribs. So when I know all this stuff, it's just like I've been just blocking it out. But I'm
rather than later, and it's better to get it out.
Exactly, because I take a lot of stuff to try and stay healthy, but it's very easy for me to get knocked off that feeling well. I suffer with inflammation, that if I don't eat the right stuff, I get brain fog still. It's and knowing what I know about implants is it can't possibly be good for me. And
I salute your vulnerability and your honesty for sharing that, Anna. Knowing everything that you know about this, and thank you for sharing that you haven't taken action because of the fear, because a lot of us live in fear of all sorts of different things, and it's it takes a lot of courage to come on a live broadcast and to share that. But also thanks for all that you're doing for just raising awareness on all these incredible subjects.
And there was one more thing I wanted to ask you about: cabin air conditioning, air circulation in aeroplanes.
It's another rabbit hole topic that I went down, and this is where Facebook and social media is a wonderful thing, because you connect with people and you learn so many things, and that's why it's also heartbreaking they're censoring so many people, because I keep thinking, what about the younger generation? How are we going to wake them up? But there will be ways. So I can't remember how I came across that topic, but basically it's a syndrome called Aerotoxic syndrome, which is you get poisons when you fly in a plane. Now, not all aircraft produce these poisons, but quite a lot of the older planes do. And what happens is, people don't know this, that the air that you're breathing in the aircraft cabin is not from oxygen tanks. It's actually from outside. So you're flying up high in the sky, and the air is coming in from outside, and it comes in through the engines. And what do you think runs through the engines? It's oil. So some people have actually been on a plane when there's been like an incident, which is where the oil comes through into the cabin and you can see it. It's a bit like a cloud. And I've seen video footage of that, and that's awful. But if you fly regularly on these aircrafts that do this, you are coming into contact with these organophosphates, and they cause cancer and a whole list of other problems, which are very similar to what happens when you're poisoned. But what's really awful is, well, several things, but one of them is it's being covered up. The airlines don't want people to know that there's not only a risk of radiation from flying, because most people know that you get radiation because you're closer to the sun. And, being a flight attendant used to seem like a glamorous job, but it's really not. You're literally risking your life to have that career. And I just wish they knew what they were putting themselves through. And this is where the mitochondrial supplements are amazing, because the astronauts go into space and are under some of the most radioactive environments it's impossible.
So have you spoken to any stewards or ex-stewards of aircraft?
I tried to on the last flight that I had, because it's funny, I don't like to wear a mask normally, but on a plane I do, because I know that the stuff in the air is not good. And it's not just the organophosphates. I think everyone knows, and they'll probably say, yeah, I noticed that. When you go on a plane, it smells bad. It's like the plasticky off-gassing smell, and sometimes you can smell the fuel. So yeah, I normally wear a mask, and this is before obviously what's happened recently with the pandemic, and I've not flown in a while, but one of the stewards said, why are you wearing that? So I took it as an opportunity to tell this person about it, but he didn't want to know. He goes, I don't want to know about that. I love my job.
And you met a stewardess who'd got really, an ex-stewardess now who'd got really sick.
Yeah, so this lady, she's a wonderful, brave lady, because she has had her life threatened because of speaking out about this. Because when you go up against the system and expose something that is multi-trillion dollar industry, you're going to get some heat, and she's certainly been through that. But her name's Dee Passon. She was an air stewardess for BA for, I think it was at least 20 years. And she started to get really, really sick. And she's quite intuitive. So she started to know that it was connected to her job. And I think she developed chronic fatigue and sort of terrible brain issues. And then she started to look into this subject, and she found that there were other people complaining of getting sick from their jobs, and then she was able to link it to these organophosphates. And since I've been in contact with her, she has been instrumental in starting a group on Facebook called Angel Fleet. And it's really heartbreaking to go in there, because it's basically a group where airline crew share photos and stories of loved ones that they met through their career who've all passed away. And when you look at the photos of these people, they're really young. You know, they're not in their 70s. A lot of them are 40-something, or a woman's got, you know, a strange cancer, and all of a sudden she's died. And there has been quite a few sudden deaths of people that were just sitting at home and just died. And when you see their photos, you think they're too young. So yeah, it's getting more and more attention now to this subject. And a lot of the newer aircraft, I think the Dreamliners don't have the engine bleed into the cabin. And in fact, I'm pretty sure Etihad even have they use the ultraviolet light, so it's quite decent air to breathe in. But it's interesting, because Dee has watched a lot of celebrities who've suddenly passed away, and she can't prove it, of course, but she said quite a lot of them will have recently been on a long flight. And she's like, is there a link there? Is there a link to them having a heart attack or something because of the stress? And now we'll never know, but it is an interesting theory, because
we're definitely in the age of really all doing our own research, using our discernment, and we're coming up to the end of the show now, a couple of minutes. So maybe just to finish it on a positive slant. So
I mean, as I said, I know what it's like, and I know lots of people out there know what it's like as well to suffer from loads of stress and toxicity. And when you're in it, you feel like you're never going to get better. But I can promise you there's lots of things you can do that will make a remarkable difference to your health. And and I hope that some of the things we've talked about can help instrument that kind of
beautiful,
better future for people.
Thank you. Well, your book is certainly amazing. Really recommend it. And how many people are on the call right now, Theo?
We've had about anything between, it's fluctuated between 140 and 180 tonight.
Okay. Well, listen to us. Next Monday, we have another Facebook Live. And then the day after, on the 1st of September, it's a Tuesday. In a week's time, we're interviewing Eddie, who is the CEO of, who's studied zeolites for 30 or more years. So And Anna has very kindly offered her book. We'll see. We'll wait for that.
Hopefully I'll be able to get everyone a free link.
And there's loads of people writing in the comments that they want to buy your book because they want to support you. So
well, everyone should get the Kindle version because the printed version is very expensive because it's so big. It costs like £21, which is a crazy price. But if you're happy with the Kindle version, I think that's $2.99 or something. But yeah, it's whatever you prefer with the format. But thank you.
You'll let us know, or we'll let
we can if you want. So basically, once Amazon let you do another free promotion of the book, then we can post that into the group so that anybody that can't afford it will be able to do that. And remember, if you're interested in the zeolites that we were talking about, Anna's managed to do this incredible deal for us, for you, the Time of the Sixth Sun viewers, where you're going to be able to get a whole pot of that zeolite, the bottle, for $70, I think.
Yeah, it's $79.95 US dollars.
But just $5 shipping or £5 shipping. That's UK and US, isn't it? I think, which is where they've got distribution hubs. And if we've got people globally, they may just have to pay a bit more for the shipping.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think
we'll find out more about it, but we'll see if you can do that next Tuesday. That'd be really exciting.
Yeah, I mean that's literally a product giveaway, isn't it? Just paying the shipping. That's amazing. And it's a month's supply or 2 months supply of zeolite.
1 month.
1 month.
You know,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's really amazing.
It's great for kids with autism as well.
Yeah.
So
I know people have been posting the name of it in there, but if you want to go and pay full price for it, then you're welcome to go do that now. But if you'd like to get this special offer next week, then make sure you join us at 8 p.m. Tuesday evening, which is the 1st of September, where Nikki Luna and I will be having a chat just like this with Eddie, who runs that amazing company. And as I said, the first question we did was, is it ethical? You know, was it sourced? Is there scientific background? Is there research? Because it's the first time we're ever going to do a promotion like of any of this type to our audience. So I was just like, you know, with the nature of what our project's about, we got to make sure that these guys really are what they say they are. And from the due diligence that we've done, they are.
Yeah. And we want it because it's a scary time. We want people to be as healthy as they can. So, and that goes for us as well. We're all personally affected and touched by it.
Oh, and Sherry's just said, this is the most phenomenal program I've attended, and I have attended many.
Oh.
And Sherry wrote that her daughter passed at the age of 49 earlier in this presentation. So, Sherry, we send you love and hugs, and thank you so much because you're very active in our Facebook group too. Yeah. I didn't know that about your daughter. Actually, it's one of those choke moments because I can't imagine that's 4 years older than me. So I'm sending you love.
Yeah, me too.
Well, here we go again. I've been doing that so much recently.
Yeah.
Thank you to all you beautiful people for being with us. Thank you, Anna, for sharing your time and for the amount of work that must have gone into writing a book of that size, ladies and gents. I mean, that's huge. It's huge.
And people don't need to read all of it. You can just dip in.
That's it. You can't read it from beginning to end, but you can. And I love it because the index is so helpful that if you're thinking, oh no, I want to read up on that, you just go to the index and you think, okay, and I'll read that chapter. It's a real dip in and outer.
Yeah.
And thank you for your journey. You've suffered a lot, and I really empathise, Anna. But going, like you said, you've known that by going through that's in a way has been a life purpose to actually to whistleblow on these topics, and they need to be. Now more than ever, we're having to. I think it's a time when we're at a crossroads, and we're having to stand really in our truth now, each of us, and say where we stand. So at least we can do that in a more informed way with our health. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about this. I really appreciate it.
Last words, Theo?
Well, I'm off to the medicine festival tomorrow because I'm helping to set up everything there. So if you are in the United Kingdom and you did manage to get a ticket and you see me, I'll be wearing my Time of the Sixth Sun jumper. Please come over and say hello because obviously you'll recognise me, but I may not recognise you. Come over, say hello. Let's chat in real time, which will be wonderful, rather than via this wondrous technology that is StreamYard through Facebook, YouTube, let's keep this energy going. Let's keep the positivity in the group. If you're watching on YouTube, you haven't joined our Time of the Sixth Sun Facebook group. It's brilliant. I mean, it's 28,000 members in there. There's so much amazing conversation that goes on. And that's that. We don't know who our guest is yet for next Monday, but we're working on that. And but definitely next Tuesday, we're setting up that we will be interviewing Eddie from the amazing Zeolite company that's going to give you that free bottle of Zeolite. I think you just have to pay the postage and packing, where depending where you are in the world. But we will clarify all those details as the week goes on.
So I won't be at the Medicine Festival. I'm not as strong as I'd like to be. So I thought that 6 days in the field probably wasn't a good idea. But today we're going to be there, and we'll see you next Monday.
And people are asking, what is the Facebook group name, please? Let me just put that up straight now. I've got a link here on the right-hand side of my screen. Let's post that up here. Facebook groups, Time of the Sixth Sun. Let's bring up Anna's book here one more time. So you can go to getbook.at/toxic-world-toxic-people. And that's, I've put that into the comments of all 3 of the different chats. And how can you support us? Well, you can watch the movie and the docuseries for free, timeofthesixsunlaunch.com. We always love people that, you know, want to donate even $4 or $5 to our ongoing costs. Our tech costs each month are about $1,500 to keep everything going that goes on in the back end. And if you can't do any of that, we'd love you to share these live videos with other people and just keep the message spreading. We start the live launch every Tuesday, so every single Tuesday, people are able to go through the movie and the 8-part docuseries. So it doesn't matter when somebody signs up. The following Tuesday, they'll be able to go through the whole thing. You can only go through it once, and then at the end of it, we do offer a digital package, which is usually $97, and we offer it for $67 if you go through the 9 days, and the physical package, which is usually $197 that we offer for $147 if you go through the 9 days. And there's a button where you can find out more about that. And thank you to every one of you that supported us, that's been with us for so long. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. I'm going to post that donate link in here now as well, because I always forget to do that. And I would feel a bit bit weird asking for it, but we have costs going every month, and it's lovely if people can help. So
we do this. It's about, for every Facebook Live, it takes us about 2 days to research, go through, make flyers, advertise it. So, and we don't charge for any of that. So they really are welcome. The donations.
They really are. And Sherry's asking, will Eddie be at the same time? Yes, 8 p.m. on Tuesday evening. But we'll post it in the Facebook page, Facebook group, and also we'll set it up through a StreamYard, so you can get a reminder as well. Anna, thank you.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you.
Bye, love.
So nice to connect. We'll see you all next Monday. Bye-bye.
Bye.